Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Welcome to the White Lotus in Thailand Cup.
It's a wellness center.
You should get a facial. The lady in the airport thought you were my dad.
Oh my God.
The Emmy Award-winning HBO original series returns.
There has been more crime on the island. I'm a little freaked out.
What happens in Thailand stays in Thailand.
Oh, what does that mean?
It means we're not dead yet.
Amen.
Amen.
A new season of the HBO original series The White Lotus premieres February 16th at 9 p.m. on Max.
I'm Candice Lim.
And I'm Lindsay. And you're listening to ICYMI.
In case you missed it.
Slate's podcast about internet culture.
And Kate, are you doing anything for the Super Bowl Superb Owl?
I have plans for neither. It's kind of a sore subject in my house because my husband is a Bills fan.
So sorry
and I know. And the Bills, they were so close to Super Bowl this year, but then they lost to the Chiefs. And his conspiracy theory is that the NFL rigged it for the Chiefs because if the Chiefs go to the Super Bowl, which they are, so does
Taylor Swift.
Exactly. And that probably means more views. But what about you?
I guess I'm joining you guys. I keep making plans for Sunday. And my friends will be like, but Candice, the bowl. And I'm like, what bowl? And they're like, the Super Bowl. And I'm like, wow, I'm so sorry, guys. I have other things to think about. Like, I don't know, Luka Doncic getting traded to my hometown team, the Lakers.
So I, one, saw that too, but two, it is crazy that this conversation about sports has gone on for as long as it has because I don't watch sports at all. I feel like a fraud even participating, but everything I told you just now, about the Bills, about knowing about the trade is because of social media.
Oh, yeah. Like, I don't know why, but why am I getting notice? Graphic, breaking, from Shams Charania. I always get those. And I'm just like, I never asked, but he is a big part of my life, I guess now. I would say the other thing that always makes me feel like a fool is when I see someone on TikTok and they're funny and they're making like day in my life content. I go to their Instagram profile and I'm like, wait a minute. Why are you an Olympian? Why are you in the NBA?
Well, I feel like, are you talking about someone specific?
Yeah, I am. I'm talking about Jared McCain. Do you know who this guy is?
Only through the times that you have brought him up, which is multiple. For a podcast not about sports.
I know. So I love Jared. He is technically a basketball player for the Philadelphia 76ers, but I truly think I know him more as a TikTok star because I'm going to make the argument. I think he kind of had a big hand in the raise your ya trend. Do you know this?
Yes, my sister showed me this, but it's interesting that you came at it from a sports angle because it was all on my feed from like a musical theater angle.
Yes, because it all started with this like TikTok viral audio of a vocal coach teaching a girl how to belt by saying, raise your ya. And Jared, he does like covers, and I don't really know if cover is the right word, but he did a version of it and it was really funny, and I think he was kind of able to get NBA TikTok involved, and so all of a sudden I'm seeing the original Raise Your Ya audio mixed with like a Playboi Carti song. All of a sudden it's like a big song used in sports highlights. All of a sudden it's the first viral edit song of 2025.
Yeah, and especially with sports, people have been making fan edits of athletes for a long time, but TikTok has been a real boon for the fan edit community in general. I mean, you're also talking about TikTok's ability to expose you to athletes in sports you've never interacted with. Like for me, I'm thinking of Ilona Maher, who was the U.S. Olympian rugby player. She went on to do Dancing with the Stars, and she's a whole phenomenon now. It's pretty much started when, during the Olympics, she was posting on TikTok. Or, there's the WNBA. It's exploded in popularity over these past few years. And again, I saw all of that online on TikTok.
Yeah, and I kind of think you're hitting on this point, which is that like TikTok is unique because it's kind of lowered this barrier to entry for like casual fans. Because look, things like NBA Twitter, they exist. NFL Reddit, They exist. But I personally have never felt fully welcomed into those communities because those are, first off, like text platforms. They're using words to describe trades and numbers and people that I'm just not familiar with. But TikTok is good at showing, not telling. So instead of telling me someone got traded for, $250 million, you can like show me highlight reels and interviews and narrative arcs of their entire career in the NBA and explain to me why their trade is worth that much. I'm like, oh, I get it, Luca. I am now familiar with your game.
And maybe give me $250 million so I can see what that feels like.
Exactly.
Yeah, But yeah, I wonder if players like Jared, these sort of Gen Z stars, they're regular TikTok consumers, but they also happen to be professional basketball players in his case. And they've seemingly maybe helped TikTok build out this extended sports universe, which has kind of turned sports from being, at least in my case, a thing just my guy friends are into. But now it's kind of a multi-entry point cultural narrative that everyone can find a way to enjoy. And this doesn't just affect new people. It also gives pre-existing sports fans who have been here this whole time a new way of expressing their passion and interest, maybe that they hadn't had the opportunity to do before. But here's my question. What happens when trends start to outweigh tackles? Ooh. When followers start coming before free throws?
I like these questions, and I feel like I want to answer them. But first, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about how TikTok took over sports, which players have taken over our For You pages, and how TikTok has converted some of us into sports fans for life. It's always fun to dive into the latest rumors, like who's dating who, and who will be on the next season of our favorite show. Well, here's one rumor to squash: the idea that Discover isn't widely accepted. Truth is, Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. That means it's accepted basically anywhere across the country. Don't pay attention to every rumor out there, but remember, it does pay to discover, based on the February 2024 Nielsen report. Learn more at discover.com/credit card. Maybe you like keeping your money where you can see it. Unfortunately, big wireless carriers like keeping your money too. If you're fed up with crazy high bills, bogus fees, and quote-unquote free perks that cost more in the long run, switch to Mint Mobile. I have been on Mint Mobile's unlimited plan, and I really, really like it as a product and service. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone and bring your number along with your contacts. Ditch overpriced wireless and get 3 months of premium wireless service from Mint Mobile for $15 a month. If you like your money, Mint Mobile is for you. Shop plans at mintmobile.com/ICYMI. That's mintmobile.com/ICYMI. Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month, 5GB plan required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customer offer for first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details.
Hi, listeners. I hope you're enjoying today's show. If this is your first time listening, then welcome. We're thrilled to have you here. In case you missed it, our show comes out twice a week on Wednesdays and Saturdays. So make sure you never miss an episode, like this past Wednesday's, on how Justin Baldoni's PR team has been using fandom tactics in their battle against Blake Lively, his co-star from It Ends With Us. And we're back. So, Candice, as I mentioned before the break, I am not the biggest sports person. I think you're actually more into sports than I am.
Yeah, my goal this year, it's literally on my vision board, is to become a bigger Dodgers fan. My plan is to go to as many games as possible. And let's just say, opening day, I will be taking that day off.
I admire that from afar. But I also would say that this year I've become more integrated into sports culture, and it is because of TikTok. I think as a platform, it just makes sense. And coming at this from like a media angle, mainstream sports media does still exist, but today it seems a lot more focused on arguing about trades and stats. And it's not really about the team stories and the player stories and the shared culture that connects fans, both to the teams, but also each other. I'm thinking of the demise of websites like Deadspin or the New York Times disbanding the entire sports department, but then buying The Athletic right after. So kind of culturally speaking, at least, fans are looking for a place to go online, and TikTok is filling that hole for them quite successfully.
Yeah. And I think you're right because, we are seeing professional teams, athletes jumping onto TikTok with less hesitation or confusion. I mean, in general, I think the TikTok algorithm is really good at creating and circulating smaller micro trends that were filmed for TikTok specifically, made by teams themselves, and then able to reach people outside of their usual fan base.
Yes. And I would say an example, which was probably my gateway drug to all of this on TikTok, is something called the Savannah Bananas. Have you heard of them?
I don't think so. Tell me more.
So for a long time, I thought this was genuinely a team that was just a little kooky silly, but that's not the case. It is what Google tells me is an exhibition barnstorming baseball team. So they're more about spectacle than they are about the stats. Any videos of them on my For You page aren't really them playing. It's mostly them doing TikTok dances.
Oh, okay. So they're kind of like the Harlem Globetrotters, but for baseball.
Right. They're talented for sure.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like I may have seen these guys before. Are they the same guys who did that viral, Just Know TikTok dance on the field?
Yes.
And then they transition immediately into a play. It's very serious.
Those are my bananas. Yes.
Those are your bananas. And guess who they tagged in the caption? My boy, Jared McCain. It all comes back to Jared.
Oh my gosh. For you, it always comes back to Jared. But it's not just the bananas. I'm seeing videos of more traditional sports teams where their social media managers are the one I really like. They're doing that trend of they'll come up behind a player and ask them for their autograph, and then the player will turn around and the social media person is holding their first ever profile picture, and so they're obviously really embarrassed by it.
Yeah.
And I watch everyone that comes up. It's really cute.
Me too. I love this trend because it's kind of multi-league. I think every sport has done this, which I find actually quite cute and synergetic.
And if you've seen those, the one other sort of genre of these videos I get is where they put mics on players. And I know that is for the game itself. It's for TV. And it used to just be something that was a bit of a perk while watching the regular broadcast. But the social teams have started pulling little clips from that on TikTok. And again, I have to admit, I don't know who these men are. I don't know who that man is. I don't even know what he is doing. But I watched the whole thing because I think it's a really funny concept.
Yeah, and I think this one is really interesting to me because I feel like this trend is more equipment and tech focused, because I think the popularity and the growing availability of those little Rode microphones, I think they just got athletes more on board with wearing them because they realize this is content that I can do at my day job. I can post it on my social, my team's social. It could go viral. Everyone's happy.
Oh my gosh, we should do a whole episode on this sort of explosion of the microphone, because you're right. The tiny mics, I would say Love Island played a really big role in the sort of the wearing of whatever, but we'll table it. But if we're talking about microphones in this context, we have to talk about the KPU, aka the Kelsey Podcast Universe.
Oh, yeah. I have many thoughts on this because I just feel like the Kelsey family, they are the Try Guys of the NFL.
Oh
everyone
God.
in their lives.
Who is Ned? I don't want to know.
Oh, no.
I don't want to know.
For now. I just feel like they make everyone in their lives buy microphones. I'm genuinely shocked that Donna Kelsey, a.k.a. Mama Kelsey, has not inked a Sirius XM deal by now.
It is coming for sure, because we have New Heights, which is the podcast hosted by Travis and Jason Kelsey. Travis plays for the Chiefs. Jason recently retired, but was on the Eagles. It was on that podcast that Travis first expressed wanting to give his number to Taylor Swift. And he'll still sometimes drop lore here and there because they are now, of course, in case you hadn't heard, they are dating. And then Jason is married to Kylie Kelsey, who just launched her own podcast called Not Gonna Lie. And that kind of happened after she was becoming a fan favorite for her just occasional appearances on New Heights, and now she's kind of a public figure all her own.
Yeah. Can I say this? I think Kylie's podcast is better.
Speak on it.
I have no interest in watching a full New Heights episode, but I have come across multiple clips of Kylie's podcast on my TikTok For You page. I will watch every single one. She is my Savannah Banana because I think she's a good host. She's very measured and smart, and she explains the inner workings of NFL life from an adjacent standpoint without being intimidating or condescending. I really like her.
Here's why I also like her. And again, don't really know much about that family, don't really know that much about what they play. But I do feel like I know her because I grew up in a similar area of Pennsylvania where sort of the Eagles, go Birds. That was, it was everywhere. And so I know and was around a lot of specifically mom Eagle fans. That she is them. They are her. And it's a really, I feel like, underrepresented type of woman in sports, at least. Like, she's no nonsense. She gets shit done. She's invested, but also this passion for sports doesn't mean disavowing her femininity. I mean, she speaks really openly about motherhood. She doesn't just juggle both those things. I think she combines them in a really new way.
Yeah. And I also like how Kylie, I think, does not really define herself as a wag, which is like a wife or girlfriend of an athlete. She does do like commercials with her husband. They are in business together, but she has her own thoughts. She has her own favorite teams. And I really admire her ability to be Kylie first, then Kelsey second. And I only know this because she is always on my For You page, and it's her podcast. It's clips from like the Amazon docuseries they did about Jason. And speaking of my For You page, I do think another channel TikTok has opened up is like Book Talk, converting sports romance readers into actual sports fans.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about because of one very specific instance, which is sort of a hockey Book Talk dramatic, I wouldn't say scandal, but kerfuffle, where someone read that book, Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. Yep. And the person who read it was like, oh, the main love interest really sounds and looks like this guy on the Seattle Krakens. So she started going to Seattle Kraken games. She's on TikTok saying she wants this actual player to, quote, crack her back. And it manifests with the team kind of encouraging this and playing along with the joke. But I don't know, at a certain point, it tipped over into like harassment of their own players.
Yeah, it was like a dicey situation. The wife had to ask fans to stop thirsting after her husband. And we did an episode about it where we kind of concluded that the Seattle Kraken needs to take more accountability of how they fanned the flames of that situation.
Have you seen that image that is like graffiti on a garage door that's like, do not email my wife?
Yes.
That is, I feel like, do not fan cam my husband is the next version of that.
That's merch. That's merch. I love it. And the thing is, I do think the NHL does owe a lot of their new fandom to TikTok because speaking of wags, every single day, I have been seeing videos from a former NHL wag turned hockey romance author named Lexi LaFleur Brown. Does this name ring any bells for you?
I mean, I love the name. She sounds like a Harry Potter character. Please keep going.
Oh, here we go. Vlog camera up. Vlog camera up. It's funny because as someone who is not into hockey, me, I watch every single one of her videos because she has this very like TikTok compatible personality. She disseminates such interesting info, like how often her husband got paid, what happens when players get traded, who gets into the family suites and why. And I think because of her, I'm kind of interested in hockey now.
Yeah, she was your entry point into hockey when there wasn't one for you before. And I wonder if she helped back channel hockey fans into Book Talk fans, because I think TikTok has strengthened the symbiotic relationship between sports and pop culture. It goes both ways also, because my favorite recent example is when Timothée Chalamet went on ESPN's College Game Day and he shocked the panel and the crew and by, actually really knowing what he was talking about. And it's sort of like, how many non-sports people in your life knew about this clip and therefore consumed a bit of sports culture?
Everyone. I mean, like, I am an alleged Timmy fan. I was not familiar with his game, and yet I really do think it boosted his Oscar chances because the one demo he had not stepped on yet was Straight Guys. And by going on game day, I gotta say, he got him.
Oh my God. Yeah, he's like a bro now. And it was really like that clip that helped. But yeah, if we're talking about the relationship between sports and pop culture, I feel like we have to mention one of the biggest joint slays of those two things over the last 2 years, which I think has brought a lot of new fans to sports, or at least one particular sport.
Yeah, and I think I know who you're talking about. But first, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation about the TikTokification of sports and if there are any potential downsides. This episode is brought to you by Built. If you earn points on groceries, travel, and practically everything else you buy, why not consider earning points on one of the biggest monthly expenses, rent? Built changes the game by letting renters earn high-value points on rent. There's no cost to join Built, and as a member, you'll earn valuable points on rent and on your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones you haven't heard of. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world you can redeem your Built points toward. Points can also be redeemed towards a future rent payment and unique experiences that only Built members can access. So, if you're not earning points on rent, you have to ask yourself, why not? Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/ICYMI. That's joinbilt.com/ICYMI. Be sure to use joinbuilt.com/ICYMI to start earning points on your rent payments today.
You found your person. Now let the Knot help you with everything else. The Knot connects you to the wedding inspo, vendors, venues, and planning tools you need to make your day totally you. Having helped plan 25 million weddings, we've got your back when it comes to every little detail like RSVPs, budgets, and more. Because your wedding comes to life with the connections that matter the most. Get started at theknot.com/audio. The Knot. Let's plan your wedding together.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
And we're back. So, thanks to TikTok and the changing sports media landscape, sports culture is attracting brand new audiences. And there's perhaps no bigger recent example of that than Taylor Swift.
That's right. Taylor Swift, when she came to last year's Super Bowl to support Travis, it felt like this really iconic monocultural moment. I mean, Swifties were locking in. They were talking about football with the same intensity and knowledge they have about her albums. It was quite impressive.
Yeah, and this is totally new territory for certain Swifties, at least. One of my favorite moments is actually a New Heights clip, not to subject you to it, but where Travis and Jason are doing this regular segment they do called No Dumb Questions, but all the questions, they sort of put the tweet from whoever's asking the question on screen, and you could just see all the handles were like something Swiftie. They were all Taylor Swift fans asking kind of pretty basic questions about how football worked. And, Jason and Travis were really earnestly just explaining these answers to them. And I thought it was so sweet because they really could have easily dunked on them, but instead they were really welcoming to this new community.
And I'm also thinking about like that Super Bowl commercial inspired by a real life father-daughter on TikTok who bonded over watching football together for the first time because it had something for both of them.
Right. And that relationship, Taylor Swift and Travis's relationship, is the one everyone's been talking about to exhaustion. You know more about them than you ever wanted to. But athlete-celebrity relationships have always been in some kind of spotlight. But I just feel like they're getting TikTokified now, and it's a whole new ball game, if you forgive the pun.
I just feel like Tavis definitely didn't invent the concept of a sports power couple. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking like Gabrielle Union, Dwayne Wade, Sierra Russell Wilson. There were so many others before that, Posh and Becks. But it does seem like Swift's massive audience is like having an effect on their TikTok popularity.
Right. And I think if we just isolate and look at this specific example, it kind of feels like sports culture is broadening to be a little more inclusive of at least what I sort of consider typically feminine. I guess because one of the reasons I have to admit I've never gotten into sports or never really tried is that it felt like I had to change my personality to kind of fit into the pre-existing mold of person who likes sports. It felt like I had to know about the stats and the records and the rivalries or else I wouldn't be accepted.
Right.
But TikTok is now showing me all the different things that being a sports fan can look like, which may have existed for some time, but they just never reached me before.
Yeah. And I think what you're talking about is entry points, the various ins that aren't necessarily like female or femme-coded, but maybe feel welcoming. And they allow a new type of fan to enter the arena. I would say Taylor Swift isn't in.
Yeah, and it's not just women who have felt shut out of sports. There's queer people, trans people, essentially anyone who might feel unsafe in a stadium or room of mostly straight men, sometimes behaving aggressively. They've probably felt at a certain point that it was not for them.
Yeah. I mean, another in fashion, for example, there's like this woman on TikTok I've seen, Kristen Juszczyk. She's like married to a player on the 49ers. And on TikTok, she would do this thing where she would like cut jerseys into corset tops. They were very cute. And now she runs like a full-on brand. It's called Off Season. Great name. They do sell like puffer jackets for like $395, but like putting that aside for a second, they're really cute because they have like player numbers and names on the back. More importantly, they fit our bodies. They fit the female form. I mean, look, even 5 to 10 years ago, Kate, if you and I went to a game, what are our options? Jersey that doesn't fit, jersey that doesn't fit, but is pink. And so I think her expanding that, I think her marketing on TikTok, turning that into a full-on brand, getting influencers to wear her designs, that's an entry point.
Initially, at least, that's more interesting to me than a stat because it's the culture of sports. And also, the more connected I feel to the culture of sports, I imagine the more an interest in sort of the nitty-gritty things like stats, like trades, will become to me.
I did want to bring up one thing, which is like, do you ever see those TikToks where girls will post like a behind the scenes of their doing a makeup tutorial, but it's like doing a makeup tutorial when my husband's team lost, and you hear their husbands like screaming in the back and like cursing to a room of one? I don't know about you. I don't find those videos very funny.
No, not at all. I find that behavior, nothing about that amuses me.
Yeah, I'm willing to bet that they posted it for like amusement or for kind of like, relatable. But to me, kind of strikes as a little violent to me because like when you watch certain male fans in stadiums cheering, they can almost be encouraged or validated by other fans or literally what's happening on the field to be publicly violent. And on TikTok, I think this is kind of a form of like private violence. And look, I want to be a fan, but I don't really want to be that type of fan. And if that's my home, like imagine if I was in a stadium with 70,000 fans like that.
Right. I think it's really hard when I see that kind of behavior packaged in a way that, like you said, is like supposed to be funny. Because I think if you've been in that dynamic, which in high school, I had a really horrible relationship, horrible enough that like I don't mind putting this on blast.
Yeah.
And this was a thing all the time. This person's mood was determined by how well the Steelers played. And there was one anecdote I remember where they lost and he threw his phone against the wall and then went, now my phone's broken. So it's just like, I think that's another reason that I'm like, you know what? If this is sports, I don't want it. Plus, I think certain original fans, not all, but certain fans can make it very clear that they see the inclusion of these new fans as a blight on their sport. Like, you know, that bedazzling jerseys is doing something sacrilegious. You can kind of see this in the Taylor and Travis example again. When they were dating, there was all this discourse about how fans felt the cameras were cutting to her too often during the games, even though her presence was a huge reason this new audience was tuning in.
Yeah, and like it didn't even end up being that often. You know, the New York Times found that of these 3-hour games, Taylor's total screen time was like 25 seconds on average. And so at a certain point, are you just mad they made you look at a woman?
That's how it feels. And also, my husband was showing me these fan cams, back to us being a Bills household, ahead of the Bills game against the Chiefs. Sort of Bills fans were making these videos that were like an us versus them setup. And the Bills, it was all these clips of the players showing off their prowess and being tough and strong. And then it would cut to the Chiefs and it would just be a video of Taylor Swift. And like that was it. That was the insult, was just Taylor Swift's existence as a girlfriend. And that somehow reflected poorly on the team. And so, yeah, I don't know how a woman is supposed to see that and be like, these guys sound cool. I'm gonna be part of this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is definitely like an almost assumed negativity that comes with high profile women entering any space they don't usually like, quote unquote, belong in.
Yeah. And look, this isn't to say that all these new audiences are going to come along and won't change anything. I mean, I do think it's worth looking at the other side of the coin about how a TikTok audience might end up actually changing sports.
I'm sure There's always been a lot of factors when it comes to who is destined for sports stardom, but having followers and a brand is certainly becoming one of them, because it's like if people are tuning in for entertainment beyond just what happens on the field, then it kind of feels like only the most charismatic or like narratively interesting will like rise to the top.
Yeah, and that mirrors what's actually happening in a lot of other industries, like journalism, for instance. It's not enough to be a good reporter or write compelling stories. You also have to be good at saying those stories to the camera and posting them on TikTok and getting people to follow your work for you, not just what you're writing. Although, obviously, in sports especially, there are people, I'm thinking of like LeBron James, who just come out of the gate immediately amazing. They're phenomenal. They'll be fine. But if you're not immediately a superstar, you're kind of on the cusp. I do think it could be a factor.
Yeah. The rising athletes on the cusp could definitely be a factor. And the question I'm thinking is like, what if you don't want to be on social media? And that is a question you and I ask every single day in our industry, because we are just like these NBA players. I mean, I'm just thinking like if you were an NBA player, if you were an athlete, would that hurt your chances? Like you train your entire life. You're really diligent. You're disciplined. But you can't hit the Quan, or you can't learn the lyrics of Sports Car by Tate McRae fast enough. Do you just not have a career? Because, hey, there are only so many seats at the Fox NFL Sunday table.
I know. And my hot take is I actually think it is charming when you watch someone who is so not social media savvy attempt to use it, at least when it comes like a public figure. I think there's something interesting in them having such big audiences. But when they're left to their own devices, they are so bad at it. I'm thinking about like Martha Stewart's horrible food photos that are like taken with flash. Or even Travis Kelce's old tweets where he could not stop quoting. This is my favorite part. He could not stop quoting MGMT's 2007 song, Electric Feel. I'd rather read 50 more earnest tweets where he's spelling Chipotle incorrectly than him, inauthentically shilling for Carvana.
And in this category, I would like to enter another name. Tom Brady. Tom, I want you to keep doing what you're doing. I want you to post those sunsets. I want you to keep thirst trapping and trapping no flies. Unless you are someone who loves Tom Brady's thirst traps, then to you I say, welcome to sports. Okay, that's the show. We'll be back in your feed on Wednesday, so definitely subscribe. That way you never miss an episode. Leave us a rating and a review on Apple or Spotify, and tell your friends about us. You can follow us on Twitter at ICYMI_pod, and you can always drop us a note at ICYMI@slate.com.
ICYMI is produced by Alexandra Botti, Candice Lim, and me, Kate Lindsay. Daisy Rosario is our senior supervising producer, and Hillary Fry is Slate's editor-in-chief. See you online.
Or at the Superb Owl.
I'm Leon Nafok, and I'm the host of Slow Burn, Watergate. Before I started working on this show, everything I knew about Watergate came from the movie All the President's Men. Do you remember how it ends? Woodward and Bernstein are sitting at their typewriters, clacking away. And then there's this rapid montage of newspaper stories about campaign aides and White House officials getting convicted of crimes, about audio tapes coming out that prove Nixon's involvement in the cover-up. The last story we see is Nixon resigns. It takes a little over a minute in the movie. In real life, it took about 2 years.
5 men were arrested early Saturday while trying to install eavesdropping equipment. It's known as the Watergate incident.
What was it like to experience those 2 years in real time? What were people thinking and feeling as the break-in at Democratic Party headquarters went from a weird little caper to a constitutional crisis that brought down the president? The downfall of Richard Nixon was stranger, wilder, and more exciting than you can imagine. Over the course of 8 episodes, this show is going to capture what it was like to live through the greatest political scandal of the 20th century. With today's headlines once again full of corruption, collusion, and dirty tricks, it's time for another look at the gate that started it all. Subscribe to Slow Burn now, wherever you get your podcasts.